I wanted to show off a new area I'm working on. I've got kind of a work in progress and I wanted to share some of it. This is my cacti hillside. Constantly planting stuff around here, and I'll be building a staircase. And I am putting in paths right along here and in other areas to connect this hillside area over to this new area I'm working on. And I'm just kind of excited to show it off as a work in progress. So I'm planting cacti along here. I'm using cardboard. I don't usually wear gloves, so cardboard protects me a little bit. And I've got some cuttings lined up and drying that will all get planted. And some of these that have just made it into the ground fresh. And some right here that have just been planted. Interesting technique, I actually put leaves over the tops of them so that they don't get sunburnt when they're freshly planted and they don't have roots yet. You can see some of these have just started growing from the tips, but it's a gorgeous view over here. And I'm planting some fresh grafts, tons of trichos. And these are all the holes that I'm digging right now, and I kind of just stopped digging for a sec to take a break and figured I'd show off what I'm doing. I was thinking, oh man, I need some kind of before video because this is gonna come out killer. Pretty neat. So this pathway will all get holes along here, and it'll all get filled in with more and more cacti. And this connects over to the staircase. And I've got another path going here with holes along the ground. And this all connects in and over to other pathways that I'm building. I just put in this ramp to kind of a lower section. And so here on the left, this is all really fresh composting material with dirt on it. And here on the right is some fresh cacti planted. You can see they've got some pups coming off of them. I've tried to cut a lot of their tips so that they can just grow in fresh in their new spot. So yeah, I'm happy to be sharing what I'm working on around here. There's always something going on. I just laid this irrigation. This is a cool cacti here. This is Delorean. It was originally grown on the Delorean ranch where the car creator Delorean made and created the Delorean. Very cool. Got some ripe fruit there. Just about ready to be picked. And here's the pathway here that it's been raining here, so I've let the weeds grow so that it doesn't get eroded. And it also gives some of these fresh cacti a little bit of shade. And these are much older, a little bit gnarled totem pole. And these are the spiral totem pole. But I am happy just taking a look here. I can see fresh new growth coming off of these and new pups. So these old gnarled nabby looking cacti are starting to pump out fresh new growth. Happy to see it. Kind of got like a walkway of wangs here. These are all long form, how we just walked past. And I've got them kind of hidden away underneath these so that they don't get totally sunburnt, but we can see some fat new pups coming up. So it's kind of a before and after. This is a before shot. We'll see all this get weeded and all of these long form cactus really stretch out and fill in. It'll be a cool view. neat area to see some TBM growing. And I've put a Bruce's Dragon, which is pupping, and it's grafted. And that just kind of separates my long form and my short form. So on this side I've got short form. And I've laid down irrigation to soften the dirt here so I can weed and dig holes and plant a bunch of new stuff over here. So this is all fresh areas that are just barely getting worked on. This is a cool one I got from Death Potato. It's a neat Optunia or Opuntia, surrounded by a couple of Trichocereus tacarensis. And this is how I build in my pathways. It's all composted material and leaf litter, and then I cover that in dirt, and then I dig it up and plant, and I plant some younger TBMs or some younger cacti along with seeds such as this cassia or some castor, and that gives those fresh new young cacti some coverage and some shade. So underneath here we've got some cool, this is El Serpiente on its own roots. It's a Trichocereus bridgesii, very cool one. And underneath here hiding are TBM. There's a cool poppy, Papaver somniferum. And you can't see much of it right now, which is kind of the goal. There's one of the poppies. But these will all fill in, and soon enough I'll be sharing almost a hedge of TBM. And at that point, maybe a few months from now or by the end of the summer, all of this stuff will be pruned away, and you'll just be seeing all of these super cool Trichocereus melts and TBMs, a bunch of monstrose as a hedge, and it'll kind of be like, whoa, where did all of those come from? Just kind of like these here are sprouting up and getting larger and filling in. Really cool. Ooh, here's some odole. The odole has got flower buds on it. That's OTLE, Old Town Lake Elsinore. So it's odole. And these guys are potted. They'll go in the ground right here. And these are some younger San Pedros, the common PC cultivar. And I've actually planted these in a row here because I think it's going to be really cool to graft to all of them. So I'll choose one cool cultivar and graft a whole bunch of them all in a line. And it's kind of just a premeditative, you see I've got a long line of them go all the way up along here. And it's a premeditative planting so that I'll have rooted graft stalks sitting there, and then I can have a whole row of some unique specimen, some lotus land or some scenic or something melty. And I've done the same here. Is got a nice row of PC, and along the back I've got some cool ones. There's some wind watcher and some TPM. But for the majority, I do have one solid row of this PC, and that'll just go in as a grafting row. Slowly become something else. We can take a look up here and see some other grafts. It's neat to do this walkthrough right now because you just don't see that much cacti, and this time of year is when I'm going to get a lot of pruning done. And so it'll be kind of transformative where all of this castor, especially this right in front of us, will be totally gone. And then it'll be surprising to see how much cacti is really growing underneath it. And it'll skyrocket up into the sun. Here's some cool TPM. Trichocereus pachanoi monstrose. And an LMA, La Mirada Angelo. And we'll sneak right up here and check out. Here's where I've got some cuttings that are all going to get planted. So we're underneath the shade of this eucalyptus. And so it's just kind of a cool spot that I can dry some of this stuff out. And once it's dried and callous enough, I'll be able to plant it. And here's a cool example. This was a row of PC. So I planted a whole row of plain PC, and then once it rooted and was happy, I grafted the El Serpiente on top of it. And so now I can see a lot of these El Serpiente grafts really taking off. Let's take a look at some of these. So we've got double pups, some happy pups, some little opium poppies sneaking in. Yeah, nice double pups. And these have healed really nicely. And there's no bevel on these. And I'm really happy with how they're growing in. So these will grow for a while, and then I'll be able to cut some pieces off of them, put them on my shop or whatever. And here I've got a little chunk of some Blue Jewels Giant. And I can see these are pups off of the rootstock. So unlike the El Serpiente, this one really pupped a lot off of the rootstock and not off of the graft itself. Kind of interesting how willing the El Serpiente was to take off and grow. And we can see I still have some plain PC. So I'll be grafting onto those. And sometimes what I'll do when I'm grafting onto these is I'll actually cut about 10 inches off, and then I can replant that 10 inches and graft onto this. Or sometimes I'll just cut barely into the tip and put it right onto that tip. Here's a cool example. That's about how tall these PCs would be if I hadn't chopped them for the graft. Another neat one here is the Taquarito, and it's variegated. It's cool. Here's a huge hole. This is where I recently dug up of my TBM. I had a large stand right here and I dug it up and moved it. What a beast of a hole. So I'll be kind of reworking this area. It's a cool in progress video. And it's amazing to see how much some of these can grow in just a few years. So showing this video now, it'll be interesting just even by the end of the summer to come back and see how much actually gets planted. And things like the castor that's above here, these have all really matured and grown in quite nicely, and they no longer require this shade. They can be blasted in full sun. So things like this castor above this TBM, that's just gotten too much, so that'll get pruned out. And I'm just stoked on the archways between my citrus trees. Makes it pretty fun. And connected this here. Here's a nice big Trichocereus bridgesii stand. And I've made an archway underneath my citrus tree and passing through my pomegranate tree over here, and just slowly built this area up. Just like I've showed before, I use a lot of branches and leaf litter and such to create kind of a platform, and then I dig and cover that into dirt And now I'll be able to plant cacti on this side. And as this decomposes here, it will become an awesome planting mix. Really rich with plenty of nutrients and new microbiological life, beneficial bacteria, and just basically a compost. Be fresh green waste compost that is just turned into a beautiful, rich soil. And I've got another TBM big stand here, and I'll be removing this caster. It's kind of a cool transformation time of year. There's a cool TBM, and this doesn't have anything neat planted around it, but I do plan on putting in a lot of circular and globular cacti, some copiopoas and Lophophora williamsi, and some other just cool different cacti that get some flowers and stay low, some echinopsis. And what was here was a lot of aloe and some paddle cactus. And this whole area here didn't exist. I piled up tons and tons of leaf litter, and I've slowly dug the dirt from here and removed aloe vera that was planted here, and it's all gotten put here. And instead of a hillside, I've got a terrace. So there's separate levels where this is much higher than this, but it gives me a lot of flat area to walk around. That's kind of how I'm transforming my hillside here. And this is the standard PC. This will be a cool mother plant area for taking cuttings for future graft stock. And it's nice too because I'll be able to nurse some of these trees. This particular orange, see the size is so small compared to all my other oranges because these weren't getting well taken care of out here on the outskirts. But now that they've got cacti planted around them, which sounds funny, but they'll get well taken care of and much more water and some nutrients. And this whole area will get planted out. I've got some irrigation that I've run over. Really cool. Well, thanks for coming and checking out what I'm working on around here. And on the next video, these leaves will have completely decomposed and fallen apart and disintegrated, and we'll see what's planted underneath them. Cheers. I hope you guys have a kick-ass day, and if you'd like to watch a cool video on how to do something neat, I've got a playlist about Dave's tricks and tips. All right.